So the person that really kind of hones this a lot, and we'll cover in both this chapter and the next chapter, is Sam Harris. We've talked about Sam Harris before, pretty well known in the atheist circles, and by his all by his own means is a very thoughtful person and puts forth a lot of ideas and has a good podcast that people should check out if they're interested in the topics he covers. So then the question is, well, okay, so we're continuing our gene pool, and so does that mean that we then become kind of puppets of our DNA or of our own emotions? So that's what he covers next.
Yeah. So are we puppets of what we're supposed to do? He says on a purely evolutionary story, our moral judgments may merely be the result of biological processes, right? Like sex drives and hunger and so forth. He says our urge to visit Hawaii in January. Yeah. He says, here we stand, we can do no other. So as Hume would say, nature is too strong for us, right? Although there's plenty of evidence that this is not at all true, we're pretty good at overpowering our altruistic urges, right?
Because again, this seems like it's not like gravity. You no matter how high you jump, you can't fly. No matter how hard you think, you can't. Unless if you're in Star Trek, the four lights don't magically become five. There doesn't seem to be any other area except this one area that seems to be so ingrained that we can outdo our own survival mechanisms in order to do something.
Right. In fact, that's what he covers next. He says, being the puppets of our emotion is troubling enough, but there's something else. Our moral judgments were selected for long ago,
Very
right?
long ago.
Yeah, and for situations that are totally removed, right?
Yeah.
And so today, these judgments often put us in situations that aren't beneficial for us, right? Adopting a child, or having sex with someone outside who's on the pill. Well, how does that help my survival, right? So he says, notice, he says, when we sacrifice our well-being for those who can't return the favor or who don't share our blood, we're really being tricked by our biology. That's how they have to explain it, right? He mentions Dawkins here that says Richard Dawkins calls these erroneous urges misfiring. Right, so they're misfiring. So we have misfire. So it's just a glitch in the system.
Right. Well, I mean, evolution doesn't produce perfect things, and we're all mutations of some kind. So we just have these misfires.
Yeah. So we do these things, and although we shouldn't do them because they don't help survival, but we do them anyway. And oops, right? Get it right.
Yeah. I mean, shouldn't we evolve? A sense of passing down knowledge through our DNA too. That would be beneficial. We're not spending precious
relearning
resources relearning and teaching.
Yeah.
Or why can't we evolve to a higher level of brain density where we can move things with our mind, or is that where we're going?
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure there are folks that believe that's where we're headed, right?
Yeah, I mean that's what all the outer limits say. That the person who accidentally steps forward in time 3,000 years comes back and his brain is pulsating. And, he's evolved past you mere mortal men.
All right. So he says it seems plausible here that evolution has simply programmed us. That's kind of an interesting thing. Programmed us to mistakenly believe in moral realism. So moral realism is the idea that moral truths, moral judgments really do exist, right? There really is something that is right and wrong, right? Just as long as we live long enough to add our DNA to the gene pool, right, is what he says. So moral realism, but is a mistake, is what Joshua Green, he quotes here, says. And because there is no real ethics, right, real morality. It's just what we have been programmed to believe.
Right. So there's nothing out in nature. It's not a product of the universe. There's no God that has declared it. The only question I have is, okay, if this is a mistake, if this just adds to our survival, what other processes has evolution imbued upon us that are wrong, that we think are right?
Yeah.
How about the scientific process? Okay, well, we just see the repetition of, boiling the water to 100 degrees, but nothing's actually happening there. We do need to eat, and so we just need to eat the pasta that's what we think is cooked, but really it's not cooked. So, what you might see as boiling water that you put the pasta in, it just turns out to be, crunchy old pasta that your mind plays a trick on you to make you eat and consume calories so that you can survive.
Right. Yeah. Could be, right? He talks about how, in the mid 20th century, this issue with regard to moral realism and that sort of thing, how to get objective morality, was debated. He says, but since it has received less attention, and he says this is not because it's been solved or because agreement has been reached. Instead, it seems that they just kind of shelved it. Right?
Yeah, there's this kind of little thing called World War II that
Yeah.
really put a hamper on things and then also made us question humanity and where we were at as a world species and stuff like that. So, yeah, that tends to put a hamper on things.
Right. So he says, nor is it that people no longer argue over what sorts of actions are right and wrong. This too seems to be something we can't help. But the question, who says, right, or by what standard, must come back again into the limelight. All other ethical questions are secondary. By what standard? What's the standard that determines that, right? And so he says that is the key question with regard to this.
Which is kind of the thing that we say too, right?
Yeah.
Sure, all these things may be beneficial, but at the same time, there are other competing ideas that may not be beneficial, but it seems like we do. So which path do we take? What should our biology dictate? Well, that's kind of up for debate. So you have the social biologist who says, run from the snake, and then you have the other social biologist who says, no, you must overcome and overtake your natural surroundings and own it.
Yeah,
So
own the snake.
Yeah, leap in there. Well, which one is it then?